So let's start like we have with the other files, with comments at the top with a title, summary and a version. I think it's good practice to just do this on all your files just to help you when you look back. Let's now create a function for setting up the password list, and we're going to call it setup password list. And I'm going to walk you through it, so bear with me because this is a reasonably sized function, but this is the function we want to call when we finish loading this file. So at the bottom of the file we just call this setup password list. So what this essentially will do is creates a layout and adds to it all the components necessary to display the password list. So for a start we've got a header bar, and we do that by creating a material UI layout, and then we add to it what's called a create app bar. We're using the material UI components, and that will create a banner bar at the top, a header bar in this sort of style, in Android style, and you pass it a title, you pass it a left icon and a right icon. And in this case we're using no left icon, but we want a right icon for displaying a menu. And you can look at the documentation for all of these methods. I will show you various ones as we go along, but if I keep showing you the documentation for everyone, it's going to take a long time to complete this tutorial. So please feel free to go into the documentation by going to docs and material UI there, and you'll find it all here. Okay, so moving on. We've set up an event because we need it for when we press the button. So we need to create this function later on, and we can actually I can do that right now because then they're all created. I'll just create the skeleton of it, so I'll just call it ready, and then I know I've got to do them. So get the height of the banner. Now we're creating the short menu to display when pressing the little icon in the header. Again, we're using these material UI components, create menu with icon. This one again, we also need an event for when the menu items clicked. For this one we have two options. We've got the master password and close menu. The menu will appear. We want users to be able to edit the master password. So this is how we allow them to do that. So we need to create a function now called menu on select. So we'll just add another function here. Okay, next one. Right, what we're doing now is adding a scroller object component. Now, reason for that is purely because if the password list becomes taller than the actual height of the available screen visibility, then we're not going to lose it. You'll be able to still scroll to the bottom of the menu. Otherwise, it'll potentially go off the screen and you won't be able to use it. So we need to add the actual password list components to a scroller object. So let's create the components that we're going to add to the scroller. So what we're going to do there, we need another layout. We need a linear layout, which is a container. And we're going to, in that container, which we call a password list, and we need the actual password list control, which is a material UI component called create list modern. Just has a more modern look and feel. And what we're going to pass to it is the actual any passwords that currently exist. So we need to get the password list. So from local storage. So we're going to call a method called get password list. Now, as this one is being called on setup, we will need to build this above this function. So just add that here. And it has to return password list. So we know that's going to return something. I'll go through that in a little while anyway. That'll be next. Okay. So we create this module and we pass through the list object. We're giving I think it's height and width, and this is the options that are available to us, and we want it selectable and so forth. You can look again, as I say, in all the documentation. I can't remember all of the necessaries. So what we want to do is give it two behaviors, this list. We want to be able to select multiple items in the list so we can actually remove the selected items. And we also want to be able to just select a list item to be able to edit it, to change you may have changed your password to one of the entries. So we need to allow the user to do that. So we're setting up two events. So let's put them also down here. Okay. Now we're adding the button. Raise want to remove selected, and we put that underneath the password list. It'll be hidden by default, and then when we select multiple or one item from the list, then we can display the button. And again, there is a touch events to the button, so we need to do that as well. Oops, going slightly off the traditional way of labeling there, but I probably copied and pasted the example from the docs here. Right, now next we're going to add a floating action button actually, to add new passwords to the list. And a floating action button is essentially a button that's been absolutely positioned. Usually appears in the bottom right corner or the bottom left, depending on what direction you're reading. And you see it on Android apps all the time with the plus. Or other actions, and that's essentially what we are doing here. So and you can create them very easily using the material UI component, and that method is called create fab, and you pass it a title and you can pass it an icon. So this is the name of the icon we want, and then you can also pass them through a color as well if you want. We've got, I'm using set icon color here, but actually you could set color here. And again, look into the docs as well if you need more support there. We also have an event for this one. So let's also add in that. Oops, I didn't. That one, okay. Now we're just going to the list, password list, and then we're adding the containers to parent controls. So for example, the scroller is adding the layout for the password to the scroller. The scroller then is being added to the... Oh, that's a little bit... I've made an error there. That's going to cause a problem. Password list I've created at the top here, and then I've also created one for the layout. So what we could do here, create the top one, just call it container or parent. Containers usually more popular. It's a long word, but doesn't matter too much. Okay, and then what we're going to do is add this main container to the main application layout. And then after all that, we're going to hide the padlock, because we should have by now, when we add the container to the layout, it should appear above the padlock, or should have the visibility, so we're going to hide the padlock. Okay, oh, I can breathe now. Sorry if that was a little confusing or rushed, but yeah, a lot to go through, and following that, lots of functions to fill in. One of them being the one at the very top called Get Password List. So let me just show you the code for this first, and then we'll move on to the others. Okay, this is the code for the Get Password List. What are we doing here? Well, we're using the create crypt method of DroidScript, which will allow us to encrypt or decrypt strings. So what we're doing, well, we're loading the passwords, which have been stored in encrypted format in a text file. We've given the ID of passwords, and the file is a vault. That's just the name of the file, not the type. Then we create the variable for, so now we're just checking if passwords is blank. If it is, return a empty array. Otherwise, we pass the decrypted value of the passwords, and we've given it key is the password that we've used for decrypt. Right. And we're going to return the list. So that essentially should return us an array of the passwords necessary for displaying in our list component. Right, moving on to the next method then. Let's do the onTouch event for this dialog. So when the user presses the save or cancel, we need to either update the password or do nothing. So we have a function here. Let's move it onto underneath this one so we know it's linked. And there are two parameters that are sent through. This button is okay and button text is okay, meaning is a save or okay being pressed, cancel. So the code for this function looks like this. First of all, we check if the OK button has been pressed. If it hasn't, we don't need to continue, we don't need to do anything else, so we leave the function. Otherwise, we need to get the index of the item that was selected, and as we pass that there in the dialog box, we've stored it so we have it ready. Again, if it's undefined, then we'll return because we don't need to go any further. Now we need to create an item. Now we're creating a new object with the title and the body that was entered in our modal box, and we also an icon. Don't really need to do that. No, we don't need to do that. Now we're creating an object, and we're storing the title and the body from the dialog box. The reason for that is just so we can use it to check against the values. If either field or body is empty, we can give an alert and return back the user. If both are okay, then we just update each. We update the item that was selected, the new title, new body, and we use the item index. And also then to finalize, we need to save the passwords to local storage. We need to save the new list. So all we're doing is grabbing the list. This function getList, what it does is returns an array of all the items in the list. So we need to update the local storage so the password list is the same when we next exit and restart the app. Okay, moving on. We can do the remove selected now. So once we've selected multiple items in the list, and we can press the button called remove selected. The code for this button looks like this, quite simple really. We get the listed, we get all the items from the list. There's a function, a method for the list object called remove items, where you just pass all the selected items you want taken out of the list. It does it all for you. And it does it also with a little bit of graphics as well, just for the user. Now we need to also save the passwords to local storage. So again, when you exit the app and you restart the app, the list is now changed. All we're doing here, we're calling the onSelect method, which I think we created, have we not? Yes. And all it's doing is either showing or hiding the remove items button. And that's remove selected. Okay. Next one, FAB, the floating action button. Right. That is to add a new password. So we're going to create a new going to be similar to this, the list item, okay, to dialog box. The code for this function looks like this. So we are creating a modal dialog box like before. So if it hasn't created before, we build it, otherwise we just jump over it. And we're having a password key and value, same as the other one really. And then we also show the dialog box. And that is it. And there is a event callback function called onTouch. So when we type in the thing, so again this is taking two parameters, and the code looks like this. So if the OK button is not pressed, or the save in this case, we return. Another one, we create a new object. We just basically get the text and the value from each of the fields. Then we need to check, are they equal, are they being used? If they're not, we alert. And then using this new item, actually that's why this object here, you'll see another one, you'll see another attribute to the object called icon properties, and we give it a lock. So basically in the list, all the list items you will see will have a lock next to them. And we use the built-in Material UI function called append item to the list, and you just send the item as long as it's got the right parameters, and it will add it to the bottom of the list. And finally, what we then do is save the passwords to the file, and we just pass back that list. So get list again returns an array of all the objects, so we're going to save that. So next time we load up the Vault, it's going to have our new item. Now I know we append the item. What I haven't done in this tutorial is sorting the passwords by the title name. That is out of the scope of this tutorial. It's something you can do if you want. You could go loop through the array, do a sort, run a sort on the array, and then resave the passwords to the file. Probably at this point you might want to do that, call a function to sort password list if you so wish, but I have not added that into this tutorial. You could easily do it at that point. So where we've got get password list, we do something with file. So let's add it up to here. Function, oops, all right. Save passwords to file. So we've got get password list, which really gets the passwords from the file. And here we're saving the passwords to the file. And what we're doing here, we're encrypting a new string. The string is the actual password array, what we pass to the function. We're using the DroidScript encrypt method to encrypt this string, which we use JSON to stringify the array, and then we're going to save it to a text file. So we save the encrypted file to a text file, and then we can get it back using get password list. You could call it something else here. Again, what you call your functions is up to you. It really is. Okay, I think we may have gone through most of the, or if not all of the functions necessary.